So there are many things to criticize from yesterday's Robert Mueller testimony before two different House committees. But if we zoom out and we're honest with ourselves, the big picture is that Robert Mueller's testimony confirmed that Donald Trump is impeachable based on what Donald Trump has done as per the Mueller report, if Democrats want to pursue it. And that's a question that I brought up yesterday with you, which Democrats need to very, very soon decide. Yesterday, I made many of the criticisms that could be made of the Mueller testimony. Mueller was very restrained. At times, he seemed confused. He often wasn't able to hear the questions, misstated even whether his own report took a position on some things he was asked about, and then was reminded after saying he has not taken a position on that. Well, you took a position on it in the report. At one point, he said, "Can you remind me who Corey Lewandowski was?" when he was asked about Lewandowski. And if you were expecting fireworks of the explosive kind, then you certainly didn't get it. But Robert Mueller did quietly confirm truly reprehensible behavior by Donald Trump, which the right has been adamant about refusing to admit even took place. And the major revelations during the hearing were mostly just the moments where Robert Mueller, in very short answers, often with yes or that's true, confirmed the dishonesty and the obstructive nature of Donald Trump's behavior and actions. There isn't even anything to play for you from the Republican questioning of Mueller. Their goal was to discredit Robert Mueller. They treated him like garbage. Remember, Mueller didn't choose to start this probe. He was appointed to run it. He was brought in to do it. The idea that he was part of the problem or part of some conspiracy to take down Trump is laughable. And Republicans wouldn't be trying to assail Mueller's character and the process of the investigation itself if they didn't believe that the content of the report was damaging to Trump, and it is. So let's get to some of the moments where, under questioning from Democrats in the House of Representatives on these two committees, Robert Mueller confirmed that, yes, there is impeachable action by Donald Trump here. He was questioned by Congresswoman Val Demings. Mueller said that Trump's written answers to his questions, number one, were under oath, and number two, were not answered truthfully. This is obstructive. This is lying under oath. Mueller told the Congresswoman that Trump's answers were, quote, generally untruthful. This is a massive indictment on Donald Trump's behavior. He lied under oath to federal investigators. Mueller exposed that due to limited scope of the investigation, there are huge areas about which we still know very, very little, and investigations are actually continuing. That is something Republicans have said the opposite of. Republicans have said the scope was too wide. Mueller confirmed yesterday the scope, if anything, was actually too narrow. Mueller confirmed that White House counsel Don McGahn was pressured to lie by the White House about whether he was ever asked by Donald Trump to fire the former special counsel, Robert Mueller. This is an impeachable offense in and of itself if Democrats wanted to take it up. Quote from Democrat Karen Bass, "The president told the White House staff secretary, Rob Porter, to try to pressure Don McGahn to make a false denial. Is that correct?" To which Robert Mueller said, "That's correct." That's a big deal. It's easy to get lost in the scandal numbness and in Robert Mueller, seeming a little shaky up there. But this is huge. This is obstruction of justice, period. Mueller confirmed that a president can be indicted after leaving office.
Under Department of Justice policy, the president could be prosecuted for obstruction of justice crimes after he leaves office, is correct?
True.
Thank you.
Now, we knew that. Mueller implied it in his report. And in the hearing, Mueller made it abundantly clear that that's the case. And this came up again, with Congressman Ken Buck, which is interesting because had Ken Buck known that Robert Mueller was going to answer in this way, my guess is he wouldn't even have gone down this path. Take a look.
Could you charge the president with a crime after he left office?
Yes.
You believe that you could charge the president of the United States with obstruction of justice after he left office?
Yes.
Ethically, under the ethical standards?
Well, I'm not certain because I haven't looked at the ethical standards, but the OLC opinion says that the prosecutor, while he cannot bring a charge against the sitting president, nonetheless he can continue the investigation to see if there are any other persons who might be drawn into the conspiracy.
Another point, which of course anyone who read the report already knew, but many viewers may not have, Mueller did not clear Trump of obstruction of justice. If you've been following this, you're reacting to me saying, yeah, David, we know that. A lot of people didn't know this.
Director Mueller, the president has repeatedly claimed that your report found there was no obstruction and that it completely and totally exonerated him. But that is not what your report said, is it?
Correct. It is not what the report said.
And now, reading from page 2 of volume 2 of your report that's on the screen, you wrote, quote, "If we had confidence after a thorough investigation of the facts that the president clearly did not commit obstruction of justice, we would so state. Based on the facts and the applicable legal standards, however, we are unable to reach that judgment," close quote. Now, does that say there was no obstruction?
No.
In fact, you are actually unable to conclude the president did not commit obstruction of justice. Is that correct?
Well, we, at the outset, determined that we, when it came to the president's culpability, we needed to go forward only after taking into account the OLC opinion that indicated that a president, a sitting president, cannot be indicted.
So the report did not conclude that he did not commit obstruction of justice. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And what about total exoneration? Did you actually totally exonerate the president?
No.
Now, in fact, your report expressly states that it does not exonerate the president.
It does.
And your investigation actually found, quote, multiple acts by the president that were capable of exerting undue influence over law enforcement investigations, including the Russian interference and obstruction investigations. Is that correct?
Correct.
Another key moment. If you try to commit obstruction and fail, that is still a crime, right? Yes, it is. Congresswoman Debbie McCarcel-Powell asking about that.
I want to refer you now to volume 2, page 158. You wrote that, quote, "The president's efforts to influence the investigation were mostly unsuccessful, but that is largely because the persons who surrounded the president declined to carry out orders or accede to his requests." Is that right?
That is accurate, and that is what we found.
And you're basically referring to senior advisors who disobeyed the president's orders, like White House counsel Don McGahn, former Trump campaign manager Corey Lewandowski. Is that right?
Well, we have not specified the persons mentioned.
Well, in page 158, White House counsel Don McGahn, quote, "did not tell the acting attorney general that the special counsel must be removed, but was instead prepared to resign over the president's orders." You also explained that an attempt to obstruct justice does not have to succeed to be a crime, right?
True.
Simply attempting to obstruct justice can be a crime, correct?
Yes.
If I am Trump, if I am a Republican, if I'm in Donald Trump's inner circle, I am decidedly relieved after these hearings, despite the fact that the content of the hearings was extraordinarily damaging testimony from Robert Mueller. It wasn't presented in a particularly dynamic way. And the next question for Democrats is going to be, what do we do? I said it yesterday. Democrats need to decide. Is an impeachment inquiry going to start right now? Is an impeachment inquiry going to start, but in 6 months, timed to be more damaging to Donald Trump? Or are they moving on and they're going to focus on 2020? Whatever the answer is, I've said what I think should happen. I think there's more than enough evidence here for an impeachment inquiry, and I think it should start whenever it is Democrats believe it should start. If they're not going to do it, then it's time to move on. The next question is, and this is going to be fun, how did Donald Trump react to all of this? The answer is like a completely unhinged, disconnected, petulant child.